Hello, my name is Lisa Elvin Staltari, and this is my channel, Have Roots Will Travel. I am a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Most of my videos will be about travel or understanding various localities. In this special series, I am focusing on a part of Quebec Canadian history that is near and dear to my heart, the story of Les Filles du Roi, or the King's Daughters. In this series, I'll be focusing on individual biographies so that we can get to know as many of these amazing women as possible. Please let me know in the comments below if there is one Fille du Roi in particular you are interested in, and I'll try to move her to the front of the line. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click on the notifications alert so you'll know when I post new content. Let's have a recap of Quebec history up until this point. Before the Filles du Roi began arriving in Quebec in 1663, there were women collectively called les filles mariées, marriageable women, who emigrated to Canada based solely on their willingness to marry when they arrived. It is estimated that between 1634 and 1663, 262 filles mariées arrived in New France. They were recruited and chaperoned by various groups or individuals who had to assure and account for their good conduct. If the goal was to populate a colony, it would not make sense to send women who were chronically ill or hobbled in any way, particularly when they were expected to hit the ground running, so to speak. Within a year of their arrival, most were married and quite likely pregnant. In general, these were young women who took the initiative to change a future which might have appeared bleak, particularly for those without a dowry. As such, they might never have had a chance to have a family life in France, or they would have married well below their station. So they took a gamble on Canada. The filles mariées came alone or in small groups. They were not recruited by the state and did not receive a dowry from the king. This went on from 1634 to 1662, just under 300 girls in 20 years, an average of 13 girls a year. This would not and could not populate a country. At this time, they were sending soldiers to New France to fight the natives and the British. It was the Crown's wish that they remain there and become colonists. The problem, of course, that there still weren't enough women to make that happen. It was Jean Talon, the intendant of Quebec, who spearheaded the program of recruiting girls to come to New France. He convinced the king to set aside a reward for their sacrifice. This was the £50 they received upon their marriage. The Filles du Roi, or King's Daughters, were some 770 women who arrived in the colony of New France between 1663 and 1673. That's 10 years of 700 women arriving, descending, shall we say, onto New France. Most were single French women and many were orphans. Their transportation to Canada and settlement in the colony were paid for by the king. The resultant population explosion gave rise to the success of the colony at last. Most of the people who can trace any French Canadian heritage today can truly, link their trees to one of these courageous women of the 17th century. There are millions of, obviously, of French Canadian descent today that are found in Quebec, in the rest of Canada, and also the United States and beyond. So they truly were amazing. Let's meet one of them, shall we? Let us turn our attention to one girl in particular. Her name was Marie Ursule Arcular, and she was my 8 times great-grandmother. She holds a very special place in my heart as she plays a pivotal role in my family tree. She is, in many respects, the matriarch of my family tree. Let's find out a little bit about her. She was born about 1651 in the parish of Saint-Nicolas-des-Champs in Paris. She was born in the 3rd arrondissement, or the 3rd section of Paris. If you look at the map below, you'll begin to see where number 3 is, and then it's truly very close to the heart of Paris. So she truly was a city girl. The church, Saint-Nicolas-des-Champs, was built in the 15th century in the late Gothic style. It was renewed and enlarged in the 16th and early 17th centuries. So we know that this is the church, in fact, that she was baptized in. Her father, Jean Arcular, was a master carpenter, so they were doing well. Her mother's name was Catherine Coyne, and that's about all I know about Catherine. Now, what happened? When her father passed away, Marie was recruited to come to Canada as a Fille du Roi. She was approximately 18 years old. She also carried a dowry of goods worth about 250 pounds. The recruiting of the Filles du Roi took place largely in Paris, Rouen, and other northern cities by merchants and ship outfitters. A screening process required each girl to present her birth certificate and a recommendation from her parish priest or local magistrate stating that she was free to marry. We wouldn't want to have any kind of runaway wives. It was necessary that the girls be of appropriate age for giving birth and that they be healthy and strong for country work, or that they at least have some aptitude for household chores. The cost of sending each Fille du Roi to New France was 100 pounds, $10 for the recruitment to pay off the fellows that recruited her, 30 for clothing, and 60 for the crossing itself, the total being roughly $1,400 in the year 2000. In addition to having the costs of her passage paid by the state, each girl received an assortment of practical items that were all in a case. First of all, the chest, the kind of a whole chest. Inside that was a bonnet, a taffeta handkerchief, a pair of stockings, a pair of gloves, ribbon, 4 shoelaces, white thread, 100 needles, 1,000 pins, a comb, a pair of scissors, 2 knives, and 2 pounds of cash. Upon arrival, the fee also received suitable clothing and some provisions. Now, how did they go about choosing their prospective group? All of the Filles du Roi landed in Quebec City, and then about 500 or so of them remained in Quebec City. About 133 were sent to Montreal, and then 75 to Three Rivers. While awaiting the marriage, they were lodged in houses in dormitory-style settings under the care of a female chaperone or directress, where they were taught practical skills and chores to help them in their future household duties. Suitors would come to the house to make their selection, and the directress would oversee the encounter. When selecting a Fille du Roi, the suitor looked beyond outward appearance and considered the practical attributes of a bride that would be adapted or disposed to the rigors of the colony. The preference seems to have been for peasant girls because they were healthy and industrious, as opposed to city girls who were often considered lightheaded and lazy. Now, every Fille du Roi had the right to refuse any marriage offer that was presented. In order to make an informed decision to accept a would-be husband, the girls asked questions about the suitor's home, their finances, land, and profession. Having a home of one's own was one of the most important considerations for a Fille du Roi. They did not want to start their marriage life in a situation where they had to endure not having a home of their own. Now, after agreeing to marry, the couple appeared before a notary to have a marriage contract drawn up, and the wedding ceremony generally followed within 30 days. For the Filles du Roi, the average interval between arrival in New France and marriage was about 4 to 5 months, although the average for girls aged 13 to 16 was slightly longer, and it was around 15 months. In addition to any dowry of goods that the bride may have brought with her from France, each couple was given an assortment of livestock and goods to start them off in married life. A pair of chickens and pigs, an ox, a cow, and 2 barrels of salted meat. The king's gift of 50 pounds is believed to have been a customary addition to the dowry. But we can only trace about 250 in the known marriage contracts that make reference to this dowry. So we have to assume that they all got it. And I'm fairly confident they did. Now, once married, there was also an incentive to have large families. A yearly pension of 300 pounds was granted to families with 10 children, rising to 400 pounds for 12 children and more. and even more for larger families. Now, who was this prospective groom that Marie settled on? His name was Claude Lefebvre dit Boulanger. He was born about 1648 in Vigny, in the arrondissement of Pontoise, France. He was a baker, hence the deep name of Boulanger. Remember that deep means also known as. He was the son of Louis Lefebvre and Marie Verneuil. He arrived in Canada sometime in 1665 and can be found in the 1666 census. He was an indentured servant of Jacques Bilodeau and was living on the island of Orleans, Ile d'Orléans. The notarial record of Claude Lefebvre dit Boulanger and Marie Arcular can be found in this little snippet that I put on the screen. And their actual marriage took place on the 28th of October, 1669 at Saint-Famille at Ile d'Orléans. Let's find out a little bit about Ile d'Orléans. Ile d'Orléans is located in the St. Lawrence River, about 3 miles east of downtown Quebec City. The island was one of the first parts of the province to be colonized by the French, and a large percentage of French Canadians can trace their ancestry to early residents of the island. The island has been described by many as the microcosm of a traditional Quebec and as the birthplace of Francophones in North America. Officials later changed the name to Ile d'Orléans in honor of the second son of King Francis I, Henri II, the Duke of Orleans. The island was also known at various periods as Grande Ile, Sainte Marie, and Saint Laurent for certain periods in the 17th and 18th centuries. Early French settlers were attracted to the island because of its fertile soil. In 1661, the first parish of Saint-Famille was founded, followed by another 4 parishes in 1679 and 1680. By 1685, there were 1,205 mostly French inhabitants and 917 livestock. You can see on the map on the bottom how close it is to Quebec City. I've also drawn up the divisions or regions of Ile d'Orléans. It's important that when you are researching Quebec history and you see these names, you know that they are on that famous island. Now, speaking of the famous island, on the bottom right of your screen, you'll see a monument that is found at Ile d'Orléans, and that is a monument to the 300 founding families who were there in approximately 1665, 1670, at the very beginning of Ile d'Orléans. And I'm happy to report that Claude Lefebvre dit Boulanger and Marie Arcular are both listed as founding individuals. So once they were there, what did they do? Well, they did what they were supposed to do, populate New France. They had a total of 10 children, approximately 7 of them who made it to adulthood. Let's have a look at Jean-Baptiste, their firstborn. He married Hélène Mesny, and one of the reasons I'm noting who they married is in case the name rings a bell for some of you. So he married Hélène Mesny, and they had 11 children, 8 of whom lived to adulthood. Thiers married Ambroise Fournier, and they also had 11 children, 5 of whom lived to, 4 of them who lived to adulthood. Marie, who was one of a twin pair, married Jean-Baptiste Corneau, and they had 10 children, only 5 of whom lived to adulthood. Her twin Jacques, sadly, died almost at birth. Marie-Madeleine lived beyond her birth, but unfortunately died at the age of 5. Suzanne was married twice. The first time to a man named Jean Plante, with whom she had 6 children, 2 of whom lived to adulthood. And then she married Daniel dit Thomas, talk about a name, with whom she had 2 more children, both of whom lived to adulthood. Claude married Marie Gautron dit La Rochelle, and they had 7 children, all of whom lived to adulthood. Marguerite married Pierre Juin, and together they had 8 children, 7 of whom lived to adulthood. Then we have Joseph, who only lived 4 days. And then finally, we have Charles, who in turn is my, thank God they had Charles. He was my 7 times great grandfather who married Marie Plante. And they had 8 children, 6 of whom made it to adulthood. And among them, their son Joseph continued my family line. If you notice that he married Marie Plante, and I noted that Suzanne, his older sister, married a man named Jean Plante. Jean Plante married his first wife, and they produced Marie Plante, who married Charles. So it's no accident that the families were connected. This is a very small island. There was no blood relation, so it was fine for them to get married. But that's part of understanding Quebec genealogy, especially when you are looking at a very small space. During that period, there was, this was the bowl of prospective people. And so you had intermarriage in terms of not blood. Certainly toward later on we'll be able to see second cousins and third cousins, but these are the first batch, if you will. So there's going to be intermarriage through the families, and it's important for you to note that because it will help you in your research. Now, once these children are off and running, we have Claude Lefebvre, dit Boulanger, who dies on the 12th of February in 1690 in hospital. He had been sick for about a month at Quebec City. Marie then marries Pierre Le Jean Boule in July of 1692. At age 42, she gives birth to their son Jacques in 1693. Pierre predeceases Marie, dying between 1707 and 1712. And Marie dies the 24th of April, 1718. She's buried at Saint-Jean at Ile d'Orléans. She was approximately 67 years of age. With that, we now end the story of Marie Ursule Arcular. I can't wait to tell you more stories and more biographies of these amazing women. But until then, I bid you au revoir et à la prochaine.